Hello.
Welcome back, everybody.
Welcome back, Evolve
Welcome back, Evolve
Nation.
Nation.
Just making sure our door was closed in
Yeah,
case we decide to do something naughty.
on air.
Right. Never mind.
What's going on here? Today we're talking about repair.
Look, I'm sitting like you.
Yeah, repair is like the foundational skill that I think keeps long-term marriages going.
Yes.
Right? This is like a lot of Gottman research around this. How couples repair is actually way more important than literally anything else.
Right. You could have your communication on point, you're dating, having fun, doing all these things. But if your partner is hurt and you're not repairing, there's always going to be this like hurt, like
Lack of trust,
lingering.
protection.
And I think this goes for all relationships, let's be honest. Like if you're
like outside of marriage,
outside of marriage,
I
like
agree.
with your kids, with your coworkers, like if you're unable to repair, I would assume like you would always feel this like tension or this like maybe resentment towards another person.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about why repair is so important, why people don't repair typically, like what gets in the way of repairing. And then we're going to share a really simple 5-step map for you to bring repair into your relationships, whether you're currently in a disconnection cycle or have experienced it, or you will experience it in the past, because we all will, including
in
us.
The future.
Yeah, in the future. You will experience it in the past.
And in the future.
And in the future and everywhere. Then you can use this tool in order to stay connected. And like Kate said, a big part of the reason repair is so important is because it builds trust, it builds security, it builds bonding and connection in a relationship. And we like to say it kind of clears things up, right? We sometimes use the word complete. Like, are we complete with this? Meaning, do we both feel like we're back in a connected state? Think about relationships in your own life, whether it's your marriage or, even you talked about like, parental relationship, brothers, sisters, coworkers, etc. Like, does it feel complete? Does it feel like there's kind of messes that need to be addressed, right?
Yeah. Like I know I have relationships in my life that I have this like constant like annoyance towards. Really think about it. It's probably because there's some repair that needs to be done, either from on my end or on their end, because sometimes it's easy to forgive, but if there's no repair on both ends, it can keep.
Yeah. And also understanding that, you can stay in self-protection. There's probably a lot of listeners out there right now. And I've talked to a lot of people like this, where they're just unwilling to repair. They're like, I won't until they, okay, like if that's your stance, like, how's that working for you? We think about this in our relationship. There's plenty of times, I think about specifically, and I use the example of like, we'll get in an argument. I feel hurt by something you did. Certainly in the beginning, you're like excellent at repair now, but certainly in the beginning.
Thank you, because I was about to say, I'm not very good at repair.
Okay. Well, no, I think maybe compared to how you started, I guess everything's irrelevant.
I could keep practicing.
So, I just want to give you some props.
Thank you.
because I recognize that, like your family of origin is not great with repair.
No.
Right. This idea of like saying sorry and like how you grow, all that stuff. So I get that.
I mean, we're good with saying the word sorry, but it's like, sorry.
Yeah.
Period.
So not a lot of repair. So I recognize that like now you bring a lot of repair and it's great. But I, vividly remember now, I'm like thinking about these moments where we would get an argument and it was like, I would be in bed and I'd be seething. I would just be so angry, over the situation. I was like, why would Kate do this? Like, she doesn't get it. If she could only get it, we all have this kind of story on our partner's core negative image. And I remember I'd have to like coach myself in that moment. It's like, Eric, you have to step in here. Like you're going to have to move towards repair. You're going to have to own your side of the street. Kate gets to do whatever she wants to do. She might never apologize. She might apologize right away. Like that doesn't matter. You get to decide what you want to do in this moment. And that's hard. There's times when I was just like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to stay here angry.
I'm going to be angry for the rest of my life.
Yeah. And to withhold love and all that kind of stuff. But no, I was like, nope. And so I would, get up and go and it was hard. It was hard to be like, hey, I raised my voice there and I yelled at you and that was not okay. It's not okay that you're treated like that. And I was so sorry. And, we're going to talk about the steps of repair, but understanding that like that is challenging, right? To own your side of the street when so much of your ego is like, yeah, but what about them? Like they need to, right?
Yeah. And I think, for me, one of the big reasons I don't repair, you know what? I'm going to ask you that question. What is it? And this is a question you can ask your partner as like, kind of like just to get to know them and a way to connect is what is it sometimes that stops you from wanting to repair? Like what's that blockage there? Like, because you just kind of mentioned an example of like, well, what about them? And what about this? But what is it for you, Eric, that would get in the way from you repairing?
Yeah. So I run grandiose. So my losing strategy is being right. So again, like we've talked before, there's losing strategies in
Can you
marriages. Well, sure. Yeah. So what prevents me from repairing and owning my side of the street and admitting that I made a mistake is that my ego, right? I, in that moment, think that I am right. And until because I believe I am right, I believe that you need to do something. Right. And so what happens in that moment is I'm like standing on this hill with a flag. This is what I realized through a lot of the work. Right. And you might be realizing this if you're listening to this podcast. Sure. Okay. Be right. That's up to you, Eric. That hill gets pretty lonely. Right. So you get to be alone and be right, or you get to kind of leave that aside and decide to be in connection. And so for me, that's kind of what prevents me from repairing a lot is like, I'm right. I have the answer. The way I'm doing it is the best way. It needs to come to the table and kind of, even like this, you think about this, like I run grandiose. So like one up, right? That's kind of the power dynamic. So I'm like, Kate needs to come up here in order to, because I'm not going down there. Right. And that's all my baloney. Right. And so I would say that oftentimes that's what prevents me from repairing is I believe that I'm right. And being right is more important to me than repairing and being connected
in
to
that
you.
moment. And in that moment,
yeah.
it's probably hard for you to see, coming off my hill and going to stand beside Kate holding her hand might feel a little better than it does for me to stand there with my flag all by myself.
Sometimes, but sometimes it doesn't feel better in the moment, right? Because you think about it, like sometimes like my ego is so like, and this is the dangerous part, right? You think about it, because if you're a person like me who like being right is more important, and especially guys, right? We're like rational and like, no, here's the rules, and I have a justification for everything. You know, it's like, no, I yelled because of this. It's valid that I yelled.
Yeah.
It's valid that I called her names, but it's valid that I brought it up to her in a moment that was totally an inconvenience.
Yeah, and I think that society plays into that, right?
Sure.
Like, especially, like, I've had times where, in the past with friends that maybe I'm no longer friends with, I would speak to them and their advice was, "Oh, he's such an arse," and then, and "Oh, I can't believe he did that," and they would, like, play into, like, my kind of, like, negative narrative of you, and so that just reaffirmed that you're right. Eric is an asshole.
You're like, I love these friends.
Yeah. I am the best. And he is a piece of poo. Like, and then what I realize is like my actual good friends would be like, Kate, come on. Like, that's not okay.
Yeah.
What you did there was like a little childish. And I'm like, oh, it's true. And so it's like, yeah, as much as I want Eric to be like the asshole and I wish my friends would stand on that hill with me, it's sometimes better to have people in your life, relational people that are like, help you come off your hill and be like, hey, maybe you were in the wrong.
Those are some great friends.
They are great friends. That's why we're still
by
friends.
A lot of people like that. Yeah, 100%. What, right back at you, what is it that typically prevents you from repairing?
For me, it's shame.
Okay.
Yeah, this deep sense
common one.
of shame. Yeah, I think it's super common. I think feeling like, I have this narrative in my head already, I have people-pleasing tendencies. I want to do good. I want to do well. I want to be, the best version of myself all the time. And so for me, repairing means admitting that I did something wrong. And instead of seeing it just like as I did something wrong here and, I'll learn from this and grow from this, I see it as like a way to define myself. Like, I'm a bad wife, mom. If only I was a good wife, I could do X, Y, Z. And so to repair means to admit that to myself. And so then I fall into the shame cycle and then I cannot repair with you because I'm like, then to repair means I am not perfect. And I'm actually a bad wife and I'm actually a bad mom.
And you just want to keep that all under the rug, like that kind of thought inside you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, as long as I don't acknowledge this and it doesn't come out in the light, it's good. I can just keep it under wraps.
Yeah, I can keep pretending to be the best mom in the world, even though I know I'm a great wife and a great mom.
Yeah.
In that moment, I truly believe that I'm not.
Yeah. I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you think about, we're talking about what prevents you from repairing, a lot of it is, maybe you're like me and you're like, I'm right, she's wrong, she needs to X, Y, and Z. If you're ever in a situation where it's like, well, I'd love to do that, but first my partner needs to, that's already, you're in like a disconnection dynamic. Or like you're saying, a lot of people who tend to withdraw, because some people do withdraw from like the one-up position, which is like, I'm right and I'm going to do nothing until they do something, right? But also a lot of people tend to relate to you, which is like, I feel horrible. Let's just hope this all goes away, right?
Yeah, and if I don't talk about it, maybe he'll forget about it.
Yeah. And so I think what we really want to talk about is moving into this idea of how to repair, because it's incredibly important, right? And what we're talking about again is we're deepening our bond, we're deepening trust, we're deepening security. right? What I think a lot about is when Kate comes and repairs with me, holy crap. And I talk about this a lot. Like, I feel like we could take on the world now. Like, I feel like we're a team. You have my back. You understand that you're going to make mistakes, because for me, it's very hard for me to trust people that don't own up to their mistakes, that say, like, I'm perfect. I never make mistakes. I never do anything wrong. I'm like, I don't want you in my life. I don't trust you, because we all make mistakes. We're all human. And so for me, I love being around people who, yeah, kind of like what we're talking about here, 100%. And that's so powerful, right? It doesn't mean you're never going to do it again. It just means I recognize that I hurt you, and we're going to move towards this repair cycle. And so we have 5 simple steps, right, to move towards repair. So right now, if you're in a disconnection cycle, when it happens in the future or when it happens in the past, we want to think about these 5 steps. So the first step, really, you want to start us off?
Yeah. So your first step is own it. Be very clear about what you did and how you did it. Stick to the facts. Own the facts of the matter. I did X to you, and I can see that hurt.
Yeah. I raised my voice and I yelled at you, right?
Period.
Yeah, exactly. And again, when we're talking about owning it, we're talking about owning it with the person.
Yes.
Right? So this is not like, yeah, okay, I own it. I wrote it down in my journal.
Yeah.
And now I'm not going to talk about it again. I did that part.
However,
that might be a good first step.
Sure. Because I know for me, to get out of my shame, I need to remind myself, you're not bad. You're a good wife. You are not, yes, you made a mistake. It's a mistake. That's all it is. You'll grow from this. You'll learn from this. I need to make that own it work before going to see Eric, because I need to get out of my head before being able to go and speak and to own it in front of Eric. Like, hey, when you were trying to give me advice there, I completely shut you out. And I started defending myself, and
it's not okay that I did that.
Not okay.
Not okay that I shut you out.
That's it.
Right. And so, yeah, love the idea. You can journal on it. But for me, I just really want to be clear that this is you telling your partner this. You're owning it in front of them witnessing that. Okay. Because a lot of people don't do this. They say, I do own it. She knows I own it, but we don't talk about it.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
You need to go and tell them that. Yeah.
And I often assume that I made it. Or they'll say, I'm sorry. And that they think that that's all of these 5 steps. Sorry is not a resume.
Yeah. Well, let's just say it's not enough.
It's not enough.
Right? It's not enough at this point, right? Because your sorries are great, but your sorries need to be backed up by some things. And this is kind of what we're walking through. So
exactly.
Own it, be clean, clear, no buts, use I statements, be very simple and concise, right? Kind of the example Kate said, the example I said, hey, I recognize that I raised my voice and I yelled at you. That is not okay. I'm so sorry. The next step is you want to attune to their experience. This is the empathy, right? And a lot of people have trouble with this, right? Especially if you're kind of lean more avoidant. It's, you have trouble empathizing with others. This is a skill. It's a practice. Okay. So attuning to their experience. So in that moment, I would think about, what is it like for Kate to be yelled at by her husband during an argument, right? So then I would, hey, that must make you feel pretty belittled. Must be pretty scary for you to have a grown man just yelling at you. I can see how you would, protect yourself, shut down, block me out. That actually makes perfect sense, right? And so again, I am acknowledging Kate's response to the thing that I did. I'm not like, you shouldn't have done that. You should know better. No. It's actually, it makes perfect sense that when you have a grown man yell at you, you do this. Same thing that like Kate might say.
Yeah,
right?
I would say, I'm sorry that I didn't listen to you when you were trying to give me advice. I really shut you out. That must make you feel really lonely in this relationship, and must make you feel unheard and unseen, and like your voice doesn't matter. And that when you're trying to give me advice or you're trying to help and collaborate with me, that I want nothing to do with that.
That would be like, then I would, in that moment, I would be like, wow, yeah, actually she kind of gets me. Right. And so now what happens is your partner typically is like going to put their guard down a bit or just reaffirm, right? They might just kind of jump on board and they might say like, yeah, that is how I feel. Right. And so that's great. All right. That's great. Because now you're on the same page. The third step is to show real remorse. Okay.
Or your partner might actually say, no, you know what? Because you've done that before.
Okay.
I'd say, something. And then you'd be like, no, actually, it makes me really angry when I did it. And then you actually tell me what you experienced.
Right. Yep.
At that point, it's important for you to then repeat, not in the same words, but in your own words. So what I'm understanding is it made you feel angry. It made you feel this way. So own it again and then reattune their experience, because I think that that's a very important step so that your partner really understands that you heard them. And oftentimes when you do that, it brings me right back to my shame cycle. So I have to start over the whole cycle.
Oh, great point.
So I think that that's very important for you to restart to step one. Okay, so I tuned you out. You were trying to give me advice. I really ignored you and shut you out. And so what I'm hearing is this made you feel angry and it made you feel frustrated because you're feeling like we're getting more and more disconnected in our relationship.
Wow. Yeah.
And so I'm saying exactly what you said, rephrasing it, what's the word I'm looking for here?
Reframing.
Reframing it into my own kind of, this is what I understood. And then I'm going to continue the repair cycle from there. But it's very important that step 2, you're really attuning to their actual experience. It's easy for me to be like, oh, it must have really made you feel frustrated and sad and this way and that way. Maybe not. Maybe I'm completely wrong. But because when Eric's going to correct me, I know myself well enough to know that that's going to drop me back into my shame cycle. I need to be like, oh, like, Kate, you're not a bad wife. Just because you didn't completely understand what was going on exactly in Eric's head and heart doesn't mean you're a bad wife. It just means you needed some clarity. And so I'm going to start the cycle over.
Yeah. And just like some kind of sentences you could use right at the end of that might be something like, is that true for you? Or is that how you felt? Right. Like just checking in, and they might be like, yeah, that is true for me. And great, cool. We can keep moving, which is, again, the third piece, which is to show real remorse. Right. And this is really is like you being real. You talked about the example of like growing up in your family, and we see kids do this all the time. Right. It's like, you mentioned that like for you, part of the apology was like, you and your siblings sit together before sitting on the couch till you said they were sorry. And so your great solution to not being on the couch was just to look at each other and be like, I'm sorry, and then move away, right? There's no remorse there. It's essentially like a solution for what I want. I see my son Francis do this a lot. Like he's so great at repairing, but to him, there's not a lot of remorse there. He's just like understands the steps of repair, but he doesn't really let it land on him that like, oh, I actually created some discomfort or pain for somebody else. So he's just like, I'm sorry about how that made you feel. And he's got like running through, like, dude, this is great. You have the language. Now let's like, some heart to it.
Yeah. Really feel the other person's emotion.
Yeah. And this is important, right? Because we want to believe that a person feels remorse, feels guilt, right? I would say even like a little bit of healthy shame when it comes to like, yeah, like I did this thing that hurt you. Like I think about this, like I feel ashamed a little bit when I yell at my wife, or when I call you name. Like I'm like, oh, that's not okay, Eric. And sometimes a little bit of healthy shame can really shift a behavior.
And I think the more empathic you are, like I think a lot of people are very empathic. They can tune into another person's emotions very easily. And I think that that's even harder for people who are empathic, who can really feel another person's emotion. I really hate seeing other people hurt. I really, really hate seeing other people angry. I can feel it right down to my bones, like when they're angry and hurt. Like I can feel it like they're actually I'm feeling their emotion in my body. And so that's so hard for me to like attune to Eric's experience, because then it means that I have to feel that. I have to sit in that and oftentimes, Eric will have to remind me in these moments like, yeah, sit in it, Kate. Sit in it. I'm hurt. It really, really stings, because I try to run past this step, because to me, I don't want to feel what you're feeling. I know I hurt you, but I don't want to feel it. Like it hurts me too much to know that this was the impact I had on you. But if you run through this experience, if you skip this step, you're going to repeat this mistake again, because you're not taking the time to be human. You're not taking the time to look at your partner and be like, wow, I did this. I made you cry, or I made you this angry. I can't take the time to feel that, then I'm going to continue making that mistake.
Yeah, and I think we want to, this is a little shift here, because we want to be very careful about taking on our partner's experience, right? So when you say like that, I made you, we want to be careful with that kind of language. It's my actions impacted you, right? Because we're in a relational system, of course, there's things I'm going to do that can impact Kate. There's things that I do that impact Kate in a really positive way, right? There's things that I do that impact Kate in a way that hurts. So we want to make sure, but it's like, I didn't make Kate feel anything, right? She's experiencing the world, making meaning of that world, and then having an emotional response to that. So just be very careful, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't want to get into a situation where you're responsible for your partner's emotions. You want to be able to separate and differentiate yourself enough to say, I'm not responsible for your emotional experience, but of course the things I do are going to impact you and your life.
The action or the thing that I did in this moment hurt you.
Yeah, had an impact on you. Absolutely, hurt you, exactly. So that's the third step. The fourth step, now you're getting into kind of some tangible things, right? Which I think is the most important and what a lot of people don't do, which is, state what you're going to do differently moving forward. Now, I see a lot of people do this and they just like give it all, right? And what I mean by this is they say, I'm going to do these 48 things now moving forward every day forever. Whoa, 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 whoa.
Yeah.
Like that, you're just going to fall on your face and that's going to be a breach of trust, right?
Yes.
And so what you want to do is you want to be very specific about the thing that you're going to do that is going to be a switch to the current behavior you have. So if you go back to, I used yelling, right? So it'd be like, sometimes I get hot under the lid and I raise my voice, right? And that's not okay in our relationship. We talk about it a lot. I admit to it. That's not okay, Kate. It's not okay that you're in a relationship with a person who yells at you. It's not okay that I yell at my wife, all that kind of stuff. And so I go through it, but then I say, hey, the next time that I find myself getting hot under the collar and I'm raising my voice, I'm going to stop and I'm going to say, I need 5 and I'm going to walk away. And that's all I'm going to say. And then I'm going to come back after that. Okay. So it might sound weird. It might sound out of the blue. It might be, and it happens sometimes, right? We'll be in the middle of something. I'm like, I can't talk about this anymore. I need 5. And Kate will be like, wait, no, we can finish it. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't. We're going down the road here of a fight. And so I just go away. I take 5. I just sit alone, in my whatever. And then sometimes I'll come back. Sometimes Kate will text me. Sometimes I'll text Kate, right? And hey, I'm sorry. I need a little bit more than 5.
We text.
Right? Yeah, we text because, sometimes it's a little non-threatening, but again, so that's what I'm stating I'll do differently.
Yeah.
And so what is the behavior that you're going to do, the specific actionable behavior that you're going to do that is going to be an alternative to what you're currently doing that is causing pain?
Right? Keyword here, that you're going to.
Yes, that's right. Not we, not all that stuff. Like you need to take responsibility. So, Kate talked a little bit about withdraw, right? Which is like, hey, when I find myself getting tense, I tend to close up and withdraw and kind of shut you out. An example of what you might do differently is what?
The next time that I, feel myself withdrawing, I might take some time to digest the words that you're saying before becoming defensive. Or another thing I could do is and this would be like, I make this decision before having the conversation. I'm not going to make all these choices in front of Eric. Like, I'm going to decide the next thing I could do. So I would go up to Eric with one solution that I could do. But brainstorming here, another thing I could do in that moment is that I could ask more questions. I could explain to him what's going on inside of me. And I think that's the one that I've communicated with before is the next time I feel myself getting in my head, I will communicate with you and let you know what's going on for me so that you can see, I'm not withdrawing. I'm becoming defensive because I'm feeling attacked here and not of his doing. He's not attacking me. He's just trying to give me advice, but I have trouble taking that because, the story in my head is that, and then that would be kind of something I could do next time.
Yeah. And a great cheat code here for all of you. When you think about this, what you're going to do differently, one of the best things you can do is really just like a very simple thing in the moment that shifts the behavior. And also that can also add as a visual cue for your partner, right? So we talk about in our relationship, speaking truth to power. So this moment, right? For me, like the power in that moment is like getting big and angry and yelling, right? That's the thing that's becoming powerful in that moment. Well, how do I speak truth to that? Right. And so it might just be like, I would tell Kate, hey, I can find myself getting tense right now. And I want to raise my voice and I want to get into a fight. Like I want to get into an argument. Right. And I would just say that out loud. And now that might give Kate an opportunity, a chance to like decide how to engage with that. Right. Same thing. One thing you do a lot really well, especially lately over the last 6 months to a year is like you just speak truth to your power, which is, okay, if the power thing that takes over is that I withdraw, you just say that out loud. Hey, I can find myself shutting down here. Okay. Like things are getting pretty tense for me and I can find myself closing up. I just want to say that. So literally that's it. It doesn't mean that I need to do anything. Doesn't mean Kate needs to do anything different. All we're doing is speaking truth to the moment.
We're getting on the same page.
Yeah. And it just exists. I might respond to that. I might say, okay, I'm just going to breathe for a bit. I might say, okay, do you want to just take a moment?
Yeah. And usually when I do say that, you'll say, okay, well, let's come back to this later because I need your full attention here.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay.
Yeah. And I get to decide how I want to engage with it. Exactly. Yeah. And so that's like the first step is speaking truth to power. The other thing too is we just talk about connecting to the breath. So this is another thing too that'll happens a lot. Even sometimes the kids see it now in me, right? I just tell Kate, I'd say, hey, I'm going to notice sometimes I'm going to get pretty tense and I'm going to be doing just these deep breaths, right? And so just recognize that when I'm taking these really deep breaths, because I'm feeling some tension in my body, and I just want to regulate myself, right? At first, it was pretty weird when I didn't tell she'd be in the middle of the conversation, I'd be taking these really deep breaths, and kids like, what is going on, right? But Elodie too happened the other day, right? I was just taking deep breaths, and she kind of stopped, and she was like, what is happening? So I was just explaining to her, hey, it's just dad really wants to pay attention to what you're saying. I'm just finding a lot of tension in my body, so I'm just breathing so I can stay here with you, right? And so that would be literally something you can do. You would just tell your partner, whenever I get tense or whenever I see myself withdrawing, I'm just going to take 3 big belly breaths, right?
Yeah. But what we tend to do at this 4th step is we tend to come up with all of the things we can do in life that will, guarantee we don't do this anymore. But by saying those things and by saying, the next time, I'm going to say, this is how I'm going to tell you how I feel. And then I'm going to walk away. And then I'm going to do this. And then I'm going to buy you flowers and I'm going to make sure this and make sure that. And it's just like, and then you don't do it. Well, already your relationship is fragile because there's this repair that hasn't been done. But by making these false promises, you're breaching the trust. You're putting a little paper cut in the little cut that's already been done. And you keep making these micro cuts. Eventually it's going to be a gaping wound. So you're better off coming up with something short and simple and actually tangible, something you can actually do in that moment when you're in the heat of the moment. And remember, you're most likely at this point going to be in your fight or flight. You're going to be moving into your lizard brain and you're going to be like, I'm either going to fight here, fly here, or like me, fawn. Just be like, what can I do to make you happy? So I have to be willing to find something I can actually do when my mind is going to be shut down.
Yeah. And then the last step, right, is we want to invite reconnection. And so this is important, right? Because we want to reaffirm that we're connected in the moment. And for some of us, it's going to feel a bit awkward, right? We think about this too. This is what I say to lots of people, is they repair and they don't feel great after all the time because the wound is still there. So there's times when Kate and I, what we like to do is we'll repair and we'll talk about it. And then we connect in a really low barrier way, right? It's not like, hey, let's reconnect and have a lot of fun right now and dance and be silly. No,
I planned a date for us.
Yeah, no. And again, maybe that's your thing and that's fine, right? You can do whatever you want. But for us, oftentimes the inviting into reconnection is something really simple, really non-threatening. It might be, we're just going to walk together, right? We're just going to go for a walk. You literally would just be silent, right? It might be, we're going to cook in the kitchen together, right? We're going to make a meal together and we're just going to listen to music. And so just being together, we don't have to have these conversations. We don't have to pretend that we're not hurt. We don't have to pretend that we're repairing. We're just going to be in this space. The repair is there and we're just going to exist together, right? And so this is what we're trying to say when we're inviting connection, is connection that feels good for each of you and that is appropriate to the moment, right? And so that might be, hey, I'd love it if we could just sit down together and watch a show. Hey, I'd love it if we could just make dinner together and listen to soft music. Hey, I'd love it if we could just, go to bed at the same time tonight and just read together, right? So these are really simple reconnection rituals that are non-threatening, that invite both of you to take that first step into bonding again, right? And so I really want you to think about that, as we have to invite reconnection. A lot of us repair, we say we're going to do, and then we just ignore each other, right? We're go into our own corners and then we go back into the withdraw cycle and I'm going to lick my own wounds. In that moment, you want to reaffirm the repair by doing something together. Now, it might not be right in that moment. It might be tonight, right? But make a plan to have some sort of reconnection. And again, it's about inviting your partner into reconnection. It's not about saying we have to do this now. It's about you, the person who created the wound, right? Who's repairing, invited to reconnection. Because there's plenty of times Kate will repair, and she'll go through it and she'll repair and she'll say, hey, I'd love it if you could watch a show tonight. And I might say, I'm not quite ready for that. Okay. So I don't really want to watch a show with you tonight. I need a little bit more time. I'd love to go for a walk tomorrow if that's what you want. Or let's try to watch that show tomorrow. Can we put that on the calendar?
Yeah.
Right?
And I like that, when you're the receiving partner, when you're receiving the bid for connection, that it's not just a flat out no. It's a no, and we do this instead. Or no, but can you come back to me tomorrow and we're ready to repair?
Yeah. So use those 5 steps. If you want this all kind of mapped out for you, this is part of our Reignite Your Marriage Blueprint. We'll add the link below. This is a extended training that you can go through that includes repair, that includes sexual pleasure, that includes how to communicate. So we give you all those tools, and this repair cycle and all the way it's mapped out is there for you. So you can go ahead and grab that in the link below.